Welcome back, everybody, to 4 to 4. Me, Peter, and Callaway are happy to have you guys back and hopefully tuning in, watching. We're extremely excited this week to welcome Joe Norton. He currently is a coach over at George Mason University out of the EIVA. Very high-level university, put up some pretty good numbers in past seasons. So I'll let Joe kind of take it away with the rest of his experience.
Well, first of all, thank you three for having me on. It's exciting.
Pleasure.
Matt and Pete, you guys hit me up, and I said absolutely. No questions asked. I love you guys. And Brandon, I've gotten to play against you, coach against you, and I respect your game as well. So it was the triumvirate right here getting together. So I'm stoked for this. If you guys don't know me, I'm Joe Norton. I'm the assistant coach right now at George Mason University for the men's side. Recently just took over the strength conditioning as well. So kind of dual focus with that. Thank you. And here to give you guys a little entertainment with these three. So
that's what we hope, man.
Yeah. You guys you guys asked the question about kind of how things got going with volleyball. You wanted me to tell a little bit of the story. I actually didn't grow up playing volleyball at all, and I was behind the eight ball for a while. So I grew up near Buffalo, New York, in and around, and my first sport was actually ice hockey. I played that from about 4 or 5 years old until 17.
Naturally, out of New York.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Played. I was a goalkeeper in soccer as well, and it just so happened that the high school, or the school that I was going to attend, Eden High School, was pretty solid in volleyball, and a lot of my friends ended up playing volleyball. So although for a while I was still better at hockey and soccer, volleyball was just that much more fun. And when practices are fun and you don't know what the hell is going on and you're screwing up points, but you're still having a blast, there's a contagious effect to it. So although there were a couple rough years of practice and kind of learning the game, it never was hard quitting soccer and hockey because she had been watching me do that for a while. Dad loved playing soccer as well. But he liked volleyball.
She went to all your smelly practices, washing those hockey pads, dude. I had friends that played hockey, and she's just like, man. No, he needed to be in the NHL. That's what it was.
Well, and here's the thing, right? So my mom is actually a Canadian, or she was a Canadian citizen. So she and my mom's side of the family grew up in Toronto, and hockey was a big deal. So it was once I got to about 16, 17, I mean, she started our high school hockey team as well, because my sister plays, and it was kind of devastating to her, but it was what it was, because volleyball, like I said, hockey was great, still love hockey, but volleyball practice was fun, and that didn't make sense to me at the time. You just kind of follow your heart and see where it takes you, and we're all here because of it. You guys weren't all volleyball athletes right from the start. Like, I know, Pete, you dabbled in soccer as well.
Yep.
Matt, what else did you play?
I was mostly a basketball guy, but I kind of played all the sports up until high school.
Yeah. Multi-sport. You as well, Brandon?
Yeah. I definitely touched on a little bit of everything. My dad started coaching when I was like really young in 4th grade, so I got exposed pretty early, but I was mostly out at like a women's practice, like shooting foul shots, or like my dad would let me jump in here and there. But other than that, I mean, I did a little bit of ice hockey. I was garbage. I was trash. You would probably destroy me, but I was able to skate well enough and take a hit, so like hockey was good.
There you go.
Everything.
Brandon was a body on the ice.
Exactly. I was a great target.
What's it called, a goon, when you just go around just like checking people?
I was just stand in front of the goalie, get in his way, you get the rebound there.
That's hilarious, because that's exactly what my coach told me to do. He said, plant your ass in front of the goalie and get every rebound you can. I was like, okay.
6'5", man, you're tough to see over.
Yeah. So a little bit of everything, but
I love the multi-sport aspect of things. It's weird because you look at, and you mentioned recruiting earlier, Matt, you look at where a kid, male or female, is going to end up by the time they get to the 16, 17, 18 range. And a lot of times what I'm witnessing is you can come in and those are going to be your stronger freshmen, your stronger sophomores. They'll push for playing time. Their IQ level is at that of a average collegiate player normally already. And but a lot of times you'll see some burnout factor to that too. And a lot of kids who grew up playing a lot of different sports, or at least had different hobbies, even though they started to, monofocus on volley as their main goal and craft. This is subjective, so it's not a fact, but it seems like the fun and the intrinsic motivation, that flame doesn't burn out as quickly. That flame kind of continues to shine, or you can look at the perils of what you got going on and you can draw from your past experiences. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super wise words, actually. Go ahead, Brennan.
Yeah. I actually really like the way you worded that. This had some really good wording, and I feel like you got the voice for like an announcer, like that. Like it played off well, the way it sounded was like I felt like I was like listening to a recording, like getting ready for the game. I was like,
I was locked in.
I
appreciate you guys.
I was ready to run through a wall, man. But no, and I think that spoke a lot when you were saying that there's a lot like that intrinsic burn kind of doesn't go away in terms of like being a volleyball player and I think that in kudos to volleyball just as a sport, and there's so many different options of ways to play it, as far as you can be indoor, you can do beach, you can do grass, and it's like a lot of sports have that availability. Like I guess you could there's indoor and outdoor basketball, but I feel like volleyball, it's really strong on two different worlds. Like it's just so insane how different they are. Like a beach player could go and try to play indoor and be a mess, and vice versa. And then of course there's always those people that are great at both. But like I feel like having those different avenues, like I always knew when I came home from college and when I'd have the summer off, I was obviously training a lot indoor. But when I could go out and play like a grass or beach tournament with Peter or something like that, like it was almost like a release from volleyball while still playing volleyball. It was like, I'm out of the structure of indoor. I don't have a coach on the sidelines or all these stats in my face. I'm like, I have like the sun, the beach, and I'm just like hitting some balls with Pete and hanging out. Like it really, like, I feel like that's a big thing that kind of keeps that motivation, that fire for volleyball going, is you can kind of adjust and switch to different styles.
Yeah, that definitely kept it fun for me for a lot longer. I feel like as I was getting to my older age in college, it was like, when I wasn't dealing with injuries in the summer, it was I get to play because I'm a middle, so we basically don't do anything skill-wise other than just hustle on the court indoor.
Yeah.
And then going to get to pass, set, and hit almost every possession on the beach. It was a lot of fun for me. But I also wanted to just touch on again, because that's something I've seen at the high school level as far as burnout goes. And again, it's subjective. There's definitely cases where people can play one sport their whole life and love it all the way through a professional career. That happens. I'm not saying it doesn't. But what I've seen at the high school level is a lot of the people that come through playing volleyball from a really young age. I've seen some like tendonitis injuries and overuse injuries already because they haven't diversified these athletic motions that they're just doing over and over and over again. Right. And then, I see them and I'm like, this guy looks like he's already been through it, like he's a senior in college, man. He's already just had this like crazy career of volleyball, and you can just see it in their eyes. And I'm like, man, you just need to have a little bit more fun as a kid, I feel like, and not treat it so much like a job sometimes.
Sure.
Did any of you guys played baseball at all? Like young, like sixth grade? I remember like I stopped at like 6th, 7th grade, but man, there were kids throwing like full on like curves, these balls, and like, but I remember my coaches just straight up saying like, we're not going to teach you that yet, because like you start throwing these things now and you do it over and over, like your elbow's going to be shot by the time you guys were like
good on your coaches.
College. Like, I'm super lucky, man. Like I had like a fastball and a changeup and that was it. I probably gave up a lot of homers and stuff, like a lot of hits, but at least my elbow's intact. You know what I mean? Sure. So I think that that's definitely, it makes sense. I think it's definitely important to kind of do a lot of different things and not overload too soon. So
when you were still in soccer and hockey before you kind of like made that commitment to just volleyball, was it like a strict, two things? One, was it like a strict stop, like you dropped it all and went to volleyball after you kind of course got your footing and kind of realized that it would be something that you'd want to commit to? And then two, did you feel like you had coaches, like especially in hockey and soccer, which are two obviously very big sports, especially with having the NHL, and then of course soccer just across the world is one of the biggest sports. So did you ever feel like you had a coach that like did that to you? Like you felt like the burnout come in or anything?
No, I didn't actually. That's why it was so weird to make a semi to a pretty abrupt stop of those two things and just focus on volleyball. There was nothing that was pulling me away from those sports. I didn't really have a bad experience with coaches. I had really good coaches actually. One of the best coaches I've had in my life was my goalie coach from when I was, I think, 12 until 15 or 16. We have the 2.5 hour practices, and I'm off to the side doing an hour 30 minutes of stuff with just him. And if there was another goalie with them. So I took a lot of attention to detail from that and loved it, but that was just me. In terms of how quickly I ended up stopping, it was kind of the time commitment that became an issue. Up in New York, Western New York at least, volleyball for high school is in the fall, and then you've got your club season. I didn't know anything about club when I was in 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade. I didn't start playing club until 10th grade, but that's when I stopped playing soccer because it was the same season. And that was the first, I'm kind of just feeling this. And, you kind of think it to yourself, but then you've got to have that conversation with your parents.
Yeah.
And you know how much they put into it for the last decade. So it wasn't that I didn't love soccer. I actually really enjoyed it, but I loved volleyball that much more. Was way worse, way worse. I told this story the other day. I can't even remember, but I think in the first month of my first year playing in 16s, I was a middle just because I was a taller kid, and
Classic.
I went up. Your first couple in your first practice, you're just getting some wood on it. You're feeling good about things. Like maybe I'll hit a little harder next time. Remember, block took, wrist away where that was all I could hit. So I just caught the ball. I was up on time and just caught the ball, landed, rolled it under the net. My team's looking at me like, what do you got? Who is this guy that we just brought in? So, but through all of it, that was still fun. I still brought myself back over and over again, even though it was semi-embarrassing. And the rest is kind of, it speaks for itself. I mean, you guys can attest to just, you've had your toughest volleyball practices, but the learning moments that come from volleyball practice, again, subjectively, it just seems to be a little more fruitful. You're not just getting yelled at to get yelled at. There's a reason you're getting yelled at most of the time.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't have those bad experiences, hockey nor soccer. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Okay.
So you really did not start playing. You said 10th grade was when you pretty much fully started committing to volleyball, and you still got recruited to a Division I school. Like that's, I mean, I guess. How did you make that happen exactly? That's not exactly like an easy thing to do. I don't think.
A lot of hard work and determination, Pete.
I think it was a combination of resources and, like you said, hard work, but luck too.
Yeah.
The high school I went to was Eden High School. The club that is now Niagara Front, they practiced out of the same high school.
So
I ended
Robert
up
Pierce.
moving. Yep.
Yeah,
You know well.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I feel like you've got to figure out who you're going to allow to lead you. And when a lot of my friends, like I said, were playing that went to that high school, started playing on a club team, when they were 14, I heard these stories, and I ended up moving right across the street from one of the schools so I could walk to practices. It was just right time, right place kind of thing. And what was the original question? Because I kind of got lost.
How'd you just kind of find your way playing Division I volleyball from starting so late?
Yeah, the resource aspect of it, right? Like now I know the right people, or I'm talking to the right people. Mr. Pierce is super, super networked in with a lot of the community around the country. And in terms of, hey, what are you supposed to do now? Well, you're going to want to email the schools that you think you want to go to. How do I know what schools I want to go to? Well, you got to go and look up what you want to do academically, what, extracurriculars, where the environment is, where the location is, all that kind of stuff. And you kind of you learn it on the fly, and you make do with what you have, and keep faith. And as long as you're making decisions on the information you have, it'll probably be the best decision in the long run. Or not far off from it.
Yeah, honestly, dude, I can't even say enough how important it was that you said this is Mr. Pierce.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, he must be a heck of a coach to go actually, give you the tools to go do that stuff on your own and not just hand it to you. I feel like so many times people are just like, well, how do I do that? And they're like, oh, let me walk you through this. And then if you,
Right.
you're a high schooler at this point, you should be kind of learning to be going through this stuff on your own. And if you,
self-sufficient, yeah.
right, if you just have someone, do it all for you when you land in college, it's going to be a pretty rude awakening. So
You've seen
props
it
to
too.
him for,
I know
for
you
sure,
guys have
man.
seen it. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
he's one of the greats for sure. He's and he knows it.
Yeah.
He knows it, but
They often do.
Homage for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Is definitely something I know, like going back to the whole 2-year difference to go from jumping and catching a ball in the middle of a practice and kind of embarrassing yourself to then traveling yourself to your first day as a Division I athlete, like in only 2 years. I know that's something we've talked about with like Jalen and some of the other guests being like that's a big thing that we want to promote is like the inspiration, especially to young guys, because we were talking about in one of the previous episodes how people get discouraged a lot whenever their start so late. They're like, oh, I'll never be able to make it. So I mean, you're another great example of that, which is awesome. Which working towards Mason kind of leads me to another quick question. So you had Mason, which is obviously where you went, Division
Mm-hmm.
One. What was your other like top 2 or 3, or like where was like your mindset at, like when you were like, okay, I want to sign, but I'm at like a tough decision? Did you ever have that moment, or was it kind of always set in stone, Mason?
It's kind of interesting. It was set in stone, and then I switched positions, and then I got to see about moving to college maybe as a right side or an outside specifically. Now, Mason recruited me as an outside. The camp before, so I was lucky enough to go to a camp out in Irvine, and this is when John Sparrow was still there, and I was a middle, and we were maybe I was one of 5 middles, I think, at the camp, and he was one of the coaches that was helping. And he looks at me at the end of the camp, rightfully so, and he just goes, all right, so you're about 6'3", 6'4". If you're not going to grow anymore, it's going to be tough to play middle blocker at this position. You're going to have to do everything perfect. And I knew that, but hearing it and getting it affirmed, it was like, okay, that makes sense. He said, so he asked me how tall my parents were, and I knew that, my dad's pretty tall, my mom's a little bit shorter, so I was going to stay about the same height. He said, if you want to play at the highest levels, you're probably going to want to switch positions. So that next year for USA, I tried out as an outside, and I ended up going to a camp that was at George Mason. So he saw me as an outside, Fred Chow, and then I don't know if anybody else knew that I was trying to go to college as an outside. So from that summer, my junior year, all the way until club season in February, I was a middle to everybody. So it didn't matter. Switch positions. I went right side for the rest of that club season. And then I ended up taking a couple trips in February or March. I went to Chicago to visit Lewis and Loyola. And I went on a trip to Springfield actually as well. I think that might have been it in terms of just the visits. But because I had gone to Mason from that camp, I ended up that September going on an official visit there. There was a solid 6 to 7 months where it was like, this is the school that saw me, it was interested. I liked the campus. I love the guys, love the environment. So it was almost, here's something else to think about while an impression had already been made, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And, to Fred's credit, the former coach that was there and the current coach when I was on my visit, he just said, go on those other visits and see about them. And I think a lot of good coaches do that, especially if you're confident in what you are going to bring to the table and what your university brings to the table. I want you to know that you're making the decision that's best. Because even though we had a great time, connection was made, you love the guys, love the campus. If you're thinking, what if, at the end of the day, you're entering year 2, year 3, going, man, what if it's going to eat you alive, because you've got to focus, so much so on your craft when you're at school. So.
And it's really nice to have that affirmation from a coach, like how you said that he was like, yeah, go on those other visits. Mm-hmm. It kind of like affirms to you that he cares about you. Like, it's not just, I see him as like a piece of the puzzle. Like, he's going to get a lot of kills here. He's going to lead us to a championship. It's like, he really cares about your character and where you're going to be and what's best for you as a person. Cause I mean, and I think in the volleyball community, that's what most coaches are, most of the coaches I've ran into. But of course, throughout any sport, there are some of those bad apple coaches that are just looking for that next piece. So having that kind of reassurance of like true care for you is definitely something that I'm sure stood out or makes it a little bit easier to commit there.
Yeah, it was just kind of like you're saying. There was a confidence in, like I said, when somebody is confident enough to say, go and check out these other, products, resources, whatever the case is, that there's not urgency attached to it.
Yeah.
I had spoke with him for 4 or 5 months up until that point and urged me to go on the visits. You go on the visits, you come back, you still have a transparent conversation about what's what. There's no harboring of, any fear, scarcity, or anything that's going on. You're just kind of in the moment for what it is. And normally that's when you can make the best decisions. So.
Yeah, definitely. So you found your way into Mason kind of from this. And then how was your experience there overall?
Mason has been pretty constant. So
you haven't left yet. So
yeah, the experience has been great. So I ended up graduating, playing one more year for grad school, finishing my grad studies. And in the time that I was doing grad school, I started working strength conditioning at a private, smaller strength conditioning hole. It's dual-plex ice rink, gyms on top, awesome people there. And I fell in love with that as well. So I actually got involved with that, then started coaching club for a little bit of extra money. And I'll be honest with you guys, I was full boat into strength conditioning, but went back to see the guys at one point. And this was the year that Jay took over. And I met him, and it just kind of worked out where he just said, hey, I'm looking for an assistant coach. Talked to a couple people, and I want to bring you on, see how it goes. And I'll be honest with you, at the time, I had been used to the schedule where they practiced from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And that was right in the middle of my work schedule. So I was getting ready to pick up the phone and go, I'm super honored. I would love to. Don't really want to ask and impose, can you switch the practice times? Because I'm nobody at that point. And he goes, no, we practice from 10:30 to 1. And there was just a pause, and I thought about it. And it's like, yeah, I got to do this. That's a no-brainer. And one of the better decisions that I ever made. Jay's one of the best bosses, if not the best boss that I've ever had the chance to work for and learn under. And I know, I don't know your experience with Jay as much, Brandon, but Matt and Pete, you guys know firsthand.
Yeah, a lot of respect for that man, for sure.
The man.
One of the greats.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, life is, in that sense, work environment is second to none now. And I think we both know that. So I love working with him. I grow every single day. I learn every day. And he allows me to be myself, which is huge.
Yeah, man. It sounds like an absolute ideal place to be in, man. That's like when you're growing up. You hope that you're at a job that you want to go to every day and you're learning stuff and respect your boss. That sounds like a lot of good stuff. I'm happy for you, man.
Thank you, man.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I, like you guys said, I obviously wasn't coached by Jay like Peter and Callaway were, but Peter's told me an unreal amount of stories. When Peter was my coach at club, every time he referred to anything, Peter was like a little Jay when he was coaching me in club, because everything he said, he was like, yeah, man, this guy at Penn State used to really push me, Jay. And then once I get to college, Jay starts coaching at Mason, and I was like, oh, that's the Jay. I was like, all right. But I mean, over my 4 years of playing against him, and Jay and I know each other on like a first name basis at least, but we're not talking every day kind of thing. But I mean, just seeing what he did with the program, and I have a lot of respect for him as a coach as well. Like he is very incredible, and definitely lucky that you get to work with him, and he's lucky to have him. So Mason is a very fortunate program for the past couple of years, without a doubt.
We appreciate you saying that. Yeah.
So Joe, is there like kind of extra, I guess like motivation or whatever to like win? Like you played at this university, now you're coaching there. Do you feel kind of, I guess like any of those feelings like that you had when you were a player, like competing, getting in like the heat of the moment on that same court?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like any added intensity because of that?
Yeah. Not really pressure, but definitely added intensity.
Okay.
Like, there was a moment where I think it was probably year 2, and I remember my routine that I had at home before I played, and I had a real, like, year 1 you're kind of going through and you're not pie-eyed, but you're looking around, you're just taking everything in. When year 2 comes along and all that stuff becomes routine, you have nothing to do with this energy. and all of the same emotions are coming up. You're walking through the same hallways and you're entering the gym, you're seeing the same things here. A lot of times you're seeing the same people, it's the same referees, it's the same lines officials, it's the same people at the table. And it's a good thing. You know this, you Penn Staters, but the way that you guys conducted your 5, 5, 5, and 5 for your warm-ups, we were pretty similar. So I just got to unload on some balls when we were doing serve receive reps, or we were just, and I needed to do that because there was so much going on that I was just pent up, and wasn't an anxious feeling, but it was just, I need to do something with this energy. Yeah. So it's not necessarily an added pressure, but there was always a sense of, I know how my experience was, and obviously you're going to go on the roller. If you don't go on a roller coaster as a college athlete, you're probably doing it wrong. You know what I mean?
Seriously.
Like, honestly, you got to give yourself up to it. So because I've been through that, and I probably had a couple more hills and valleys, I just want, without giving it to these kids, like we talked about the recruiting process, and you got to be self-sufficient, but there's sometimes, especially on the men's side of things, pride is super high, and you don't want to ask for help. Sometimes you just got to throw the help in the way of their path, and they'll pick it up because it's their idea to pick it up sometimes, right? All the way to, some people don't know how to ask for it. Some people are uncomfortable, and it's just, if I can help bring more fun to the game while we're making it easier and while we're thinking about things and how to progress, then I think your overall experience in college will be better. Because I know there were nights and weeks that I was pent up going, why isn't it right on the court? Missing out on the other 90 whatever percent of life, right? So just helping these kids find a balance is my biggest thing. And obviously the winning is the winning, I just listened to the Pat Riley quote the other day. I can't remember exactly what it is now, embarrassed myself, but he says something like, the only thing, like, it's something about, I hate losing. I'll figure it out. I'm going to Google it before, but it's one of those things where we're content after we win, but after a loss, it's just absolutely the worst, because the potential that you have, and it always comes down to what's going on between your ears. And we kind of take pride in that. We take pride at mentally and emotionally preparing these kids, because once you get to a certain point, the physicality and the talent levels, they all kind of even out,
Yeah, that's true.
Brandon, you can speak to this, man. Your first couple of years at Charleston, you guys were the toughest out when we went to your guys' place, and that wasn't just us. And it was because you guys wouldn't stop. It didn't matter if there was a score that said 20-12. It didn't matter if it was 0-0. Like, you guys were throwing haymakers on every single point. And getting that to be intrinsic and letting that kind of bleed into your culture is gigantic. And obviously it's helped because, I'm going to get amped right now. I'm going to get too much of a person, but you got some dogs. You got some dogs at that school, man.
I appreciate it. That I definitely appreciate and respect that. Yeah. I know, because again, Peter was a part of my recruiting process and everything. And I remember Peter gave me probably one of the best life advices that I ever took when I was on this Charleston trip. And I was young, kind of not ego filled, because it's not like I was the most highly recruited kid. You can ask Peter, I was pretty self-know where I was. I was very happy with anything. But when I was there on the trip, I was like, Peter, I don't know if I really, because I had opportunities to maybe walk on or go somewhere else to maybe a bigger school. And Peter was like, do you really want to go to a program where you sit for 2 years and maybe get to get in and work? He was like, yeah, you'll work a bunch, but he's like, here you get to he's like, I went and I was able to follow my dad's footsteps and be a part of Penn State. He's like, you could be the start of the next Penn State. He's like, you could be the start of Charleston or whatever it is. He was like you got to take pride in that. So I know that gassed me up to kind of go. And then you're right, when we got there, we were a very undersized team in general, as I'm sure you remember from the start. And as we got going, we got some pretty good sized middles. But yeah, we definitely became a team where I think we just started to get really pissed with the fact that we were losing and playing bad and overthinking. And I know that we had a few years where we were just, it was kind of F it to everything. And we were just balls to the walls. It's we don't care what it is, go for everything. And so I definitely appreciate that little shout out. And I know my guys over at Charleston will too. And I'm still in contact with a bunch of them. So and Mason was always a good battle, man. You guys were always put up a good team. So
we appreciate that. It's just, like I said, stereotypically first year, second year team, that could easily be looked at as something like a trap match to some people. Some people look at it and say, oh, well, we should be okay with that. Typical 19, 20-year-olds, oh, it's first year program, whatever the case is. Yeah. And I think it was the very first match that we played, and we had a doubleheader against you guys. Or no, it wasn't doubleheader. We were coming from Ohio State. And we won in 3, but we won like 25, 23,
we had that
25, 26, 24.
That one overtime game, or that one extra point game, that one extra point game where we were going and they called a double when our guy went to free ball it over for game point. And I remember when we were crossing past the pole switching, even Jay turned to our coach and was like, that was a terrible call. Like, I'm sorry that had to end that way.
Right.
And we just switched benches. But I remember that exact matchup. I remember that day. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think ever since that point, again, your nature is to come in and go, okay, this team is working on raising their own bar. We know what it's like with the first year of a different coach. Think about the first year of a real program, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And after that, it was, you kind of got to circle that, or else it's going to fall into a trap match, because we're going to end up coming from wherever, and we have the 4.5, 5 hour bus trip to get to you guys. And then all of a sudden it's wham, 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 wham. And you're just, holy smokes, it's 8-1, 9-1. You guys have been gassed for the last 24 hours, just visualizing greatness. And you can't sleep against you guys. No doubt.
Definitely not.
No.
Definitely. Another question I had. So you said when you finished up at Mason, you had you did your grad degree, and then you kind of jumped straight into strength and conditioning, which is obviously a huge benefit for as being a coach and just in general in life, or like it's a great avenue to have as an athlete. Did you ever look into or try to pursue overseas or professional volleyball or any realm, or were you kind of like ready to kind of go into that next chapter of life, or, just in general, was that ever a thought in the back of the head?
Yeah, no, it definitely was. The way it worked out was I was talking to my family about wanting to go. They really wanted me to finish school. And I'm glad that I finished school, because I'm not sure that I would have gone back if I left a year of grad school out there. Yeah. It's also you figuring out bills that you got to pay. I wasn't the type of player coming out of school where I was going to be able to make 50, 60, 70K and go to a first league and go somewhere. So you kind of think about the timeline of, all right, if I got to go to a B or a C league, maybe even, and work my way through a season, maybe season and a half before you get pulled up, that could potentially be a 1.5, 2-year process of getting your finances correct. Yeah. So at that point, it was, I'm going to finish school. And if I finish school, we can see what happens. I unfortunately then fell into I'm getting better. I'm training still, like I could go play. But my most recent video that people would look at it legitimately would have been from 2.5 seasons ago.
Yep.
And that's just, again, I had to cope with that and just understand that's what it was. But I think that's probably where coaching became more of my focus, or it kept me around the game at as high a level as I could find, kind of soothe that itch, so to speak.
Yeah.
But again, I think, the guys that we're training right now and wanting to compete with, we're trying to get to the point where they want to go and play overseas. So again, my experiences of not necessarily being there, but how to prepare yourself, how to keep yourself ready, what to think, why we're focusing on this stuff now. Yeah. That's all kind of vicarious and then understood as what might need to be. So, if the kids are ready to sponge the stuff up, we're ready to give them the information. And I kind of have that as a overlying fulfillment because I didn't go. It's kind of how can I help more kids live that dream? So.
Absolutely. That's what you hope as a coach, man, helping these kids grow and success in all kinds of avenues of life. I think it's super important for the guys that like to coach. And if you don't like that as a coach, then maybe stop doing it.
A little PSA from MC over here.
Right. Yeah, man. One of the reasons I want to coach, man, is because it sounds like you've been blessed with some good coaches. I've had plenty of good coaches, man, and lots of different sports, but I've also had some pretty rough coaches. And that's kind of the driving force is I'd like to be one of those good coaches out there and have a positive impact on people's lives. So,
yeah, definitely. which I think
Absolutely.
why this is going to be like a very, really good episode. And I think a lot of people will love it is because I think all four of us are kind of the same base where it's like, we were so inspired by coaches and just being a part of volleyball. It kind of lit that fire like we were talking about intrinsically earlier. And that now we're all kind of on the same path. Like we all want to be coaches. Like there's really no end to volleyball for us. So that's why this one will be a really good, and from so many different backgrounds. Like Joe, you definitely had more than enough skill to go overseas, but you take the option of getting your master's and going that route, which obviously clearly paid off for you as you're now a coach at a Division I school and everything like that. So I think it'll be really good for people to listen to, and I think that they're gonna love it. And hopefully your guys from Mason will check in and get a little bit of inspiration from their coach as he shares kind of his background.
Yeah. I'll plug it to the guys and make sure they get some clicks and some views for sure. They're itching anyways. They can't really do that much right now. We're basically phasing from individual stuff to groups, and I think this speaks for most schools that are still trying to be involved with whatever capacity of athletics. It's a slow, steady grind, and I'll definitely give them this. They can burn some time with some creative juices flowing.
I know. I've still pretty good friends with some of the guys over there. Me and Hayden are pretty close. I've talked to him about having him on and things like that. I know that he's excited. I'm sure he's been checking them out or whatever, but I'd plan on hopefully getting him on sometime because that kid's an absolute monster of a player, and playing against him you never wanted to be on the other end of that if it got through a block because you were hoping you walked out with teeth.
Yeah, he's got a howitzer for sure.
Jeez.
Yeah, he's got a cannon.
Howitzer.
Just curious. I kind of just gotta ask this, man. Does Jay still give buckets of reasons for why you should go for the ball? Does he still give that a good amount? Yeah.
He does, but luckily enough, guys are understanding what that really means the first time he says it now. Yep. So that's kind of permeating a little bit quicker.
I wish I learned before or after the first time, man. I wish I learned after the first time. That would have been great.
I think really what happens is you hear it, you go through it, and then you got to have somebody that really knows what empathy means. So when they're a junior or a senior, they can kind of pull the young guy along, go, listen.
Yeah.
That's the last thing you want to hear. Just make sure, I don't care if you're not even close to the ball, go for it, please. We don't want to stop. I don't want to shag balls for the next 2.5 minutes while you think you know what's going on right now. Let's just make it happen, okay?
I've definitely been on the end of actually not knowing what the heck's going on and sprinting all over the gym. Just like, well, I clearly did not try hard enough, and this is the result.
So I have not played under Jay. I'm assuming this bucket of reasons to go for a ball would be just also to clarify. I'm assuming you're all over the gym for a bucket or two of balls, is my guess, based on.
It's not, sometimes it's not even all over the gym, right? Sometimes
it might be right funny, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it what happens a lot of times? It's when you get lost in the play. You know how that happens?
Yeah.
Matt, you can attest to this if this is what happened. Maybe you're coming on, you're serving, right? It's your sophomore year. You're kind of just in that moment, but you get lost in what your jobs and responsibilities are, and you have that physical brain fart. And the ball lands probably 2 feet in front of you, but you're back on your heels and you're kind of looking at the wrong thing, and then it's over, And then you're gonna kind of.
It's over before you know it, That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter what was happening, but you messed up, and then you gotta reap the consequences, man.
Usually bucket of reasons, or the OTI is what he calls it now. Opportunity to improve. You remember?
There we go. That's a good one.
Yeah. Dude, that one's a gnarly one. That's the marble rolls.
Does he? Marble rolls are tough.
Yeah. Personally, if I've got to go through it, and you had to, one or the other, I might go for the bucket of reasons.
I think I'd go for the bucket. Yeah.
Yes. The marble.
So anyone that doesn't know what marble rolls are, you start with a bucket of balls at like the net, let's say, and you're the only person on the court, and they just start rolling a ball, and you have to go stop it before it rolls off the court. And if you don't, I think what is it, like a minute of time that you have to do this? And if you don't stop it, then they add time to it.
And depending on the day and how practice has gone, maybe we add 10 seconds, maybe add 30 seconds.
Yeah, it can go and go and go. So kind of
Mm-hmm.
the trick to any of these I don't know, consequence drills or, opportunities to improve. You got to be just hustling as much as you possibly can to start, because that's what the coach is looking for. That was usually why you're in the situation you're in. So if you start dazed and confused and you don't go after that first one, the rest of it is going to get exponentially worse faster and faster. So, let's say it's a bucket of reason and he punts that one across the gym. If you aren't flying as fast as you can and diving, then the next 30 are going to be the same thing in the opposite direction, and you'll never get a touch on any of them. But hustling right out the gate is definitely the secret to that.
Yeah.
I think my favorite thing, though, that Jay would do is, like you said, man, if you did go for the first one or two, usually those were like to the walls. You go for those two, and that ball was like 2 feet in front of you, you weren't paying attention. What he ends up doing is just like, and this was the ball you should have gotten, and tosses
That's
you.
exactly
It's like literally
right.
a step, and you just, it's like, wow. All right, just go for the ball.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. It comes full circle. It's not just wasted energy. There's always a lesson with Jay.
Yes.
That makes me so happy that that's not something that just happened. That's been him since you guys.
It's been in his bag for quite a while. It's his trusty 9-iron.
I mean, man, I hope to be using the same thing, man. I told Jay, I think at some point, like, I'm going to be stealing some of this stuff if I ever end up coaching. I hope you know that. I mean, he knows what he's doing.
I think that he'd probably be honored to hear that, Pete, honestly. I think that's what coaches want, little parts of them just being passed on.
Yeah. Dang, I'm going to just heard this over a quick conversation. That's pretty sweet, man. I don't think anybody's not going to use that.
Yet all the high school kids that will listen to this are now going to be cursing on I never had to do this before. After 4 to 4 talks about this drill now, all the coaches are doing it across the nation.
We did tell them how to get out of it, though, right? I mean,
or just not get themselves into it to begin with, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just go for it.
Yeah.
Right. So we're good.
Yeah.
Another thing, so you didn't exactly go overseas and have a professional season after, but you have been very involved with the professional league in the U.S. I know you're playing in a bunch, you're kind of helping out with, I assume, but I know that you're very active in it, and then as well as went over to China with them as well to play against some teams over there, correct? If you don't mind diving into that a little bit. I know that if Callaway was on the team, you probably were down a middle, but how did you carry the weight if Callaway was on the court?
So I'll say this in complete defense.
I got to find my shots at Callaway every time.
We weren't down the middle. We ended up down the right side, and Callaway stepped in.
That's right.
Actually,
dude. I went right up to the coach. I was like, I'm gonna play right side now.
Callaway, what a guy!
And he balled too. That was the crazy part. Like, not that I didn't
the crazy part.
Callaway. No, but think about it.
I know what he means.
Listen, let me tell you something about this China trip, because now we're gonna get real. All right. We were a bunch of boys that got together and went to go ball. We went and played against teams that had been playing in the A leagues of China. That, yes, some of them were missing their best players because they were training with the national team, but these were like units of people that have been together for 3-4 years. They played juniors together. It's the stereotypical non-American way of sport coming up.
Yeah.
So we got there and we were just trying to hang on. Like, I apologize to anybody that was in China with us right now if that like hurts your feelings. Like, just look at how the tail of the tape was actually stacked. Like, let's be real for a second.
Yeah.
So for Callaway to step in on like our 5th or 6th match against a team that was ready to go from 4 months prior and you hit like 450, 500 on the right side. Like, there was, we just, because you remember Connor had Colin that whole time, and he was just like, Colin, and then Colin wasn't
he didn't
there.
change it much once Colin was
so
out.
So he didn't, and that's the thing. So to just put a middle out there, let him ball like that, D balls, front row, back row, didn't matter. I give Callaway a lot of respect for that.
See,
Appreciate you,
it's
man.
like that. It's like that Russia-Brazil match, man. Brazil was up 2-0. They moved their big middle to the right.
I don't know
let
if
him
it
do
was
his
like
thing,
that.
That's exactly what we thought of, actually, Peter. That was
inspired us.
But I'm sorry, I got that a little bit.
You're just going into the whole experience of it. So yeah.
I think first and foremost, there's been a couple of different leagues, a few different names. The most recent right now that I'm playing for is the VLA, And we actually didn't go to China with the VLA. However, the fact that we have a volleyball body that's trying to get something going for professional volleyball in the U.S., even as we get to the point where we hopefully can make that happen consistently, to have the availability to play at a high level without having to leave, I think is the first stopgap of 3 or 4 that need to happen. It's something that the culture of the sport has always been kind of, you're going to be a weekend warrior of sorts. You know, you're going to hit your adult nationals, you're going to have your other weekend tournaments, or you're going to play professionally. Yeah. And that's a wide gap, you know. That's a really, really wide gap. And there's a lot of people that, you know, your guys, yourself included, but you want to keep playing at the highest level that you can. So to have an interim, let alone something that might be able to build up to compete with some of these leagues, is huge. And it's still great people. It's still everybody that wants to be involved at a high level, and it promotes. So anything that we can do to support, you know, the leagues going on here is only going to help out the kids that are getting recruited to go to college right now. And, you know, if you're a parent of a volleyball athlete, it's going to help your kid make an easier decision or have less stress when the time comes. You know, you might want them to still get a degree and stay in the States. Well, now you might be able to, in 5 to 10 years, go to grad school while you're playing on one of these professional teams. You know, we've seen what happens with online classes right now and how things are going. So I don't know what it's going to look like when the finished product is all said and done, but we've had a couple of tournaments, you know, not since that happened in July. It went off amazing. And, you know, whatever side of the scale, nobody came out of it with an issue, but everybody definitely respected everybody's wishes while we were there. So the more volleyball that we can promote in the States, the better. There's a lot of detractors and haters because it's not a finished product yet. But as volleyball athletes, you guys can attest to just having the opportunity and keeping faith in an idea that the opportunity will be there is kind of sometimes all you need. So
honestly, kind of blows my mind how many haters there are. It's like people that complain about volleyball not having a presence in the U.S. will be the first to hate on the league. And it's like,
that doesn't make sense, man.
Why are you, you know, hey, I get it. It's not great yet, but it could be. And it's going to be harder if you are the one saying, oh, that's never going to work. That's, you know, it's not a real thing that's doing. That's not legitimate. Or, you know, if you keep throwing these negative labels on it, then it's going to make it harder for the people that are putting in the work to do it. So I wish, you know, if anyone, any of the haters are out there, you know, go see a tournament, like support it, watch a stream, like do something, just see exactly what it is before you put a negative label on it.
Yeah. And think about where that negative label probably comes from. It's in comparison. You know, it's in comparison. Like, we're not going to be a Russian Super League.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or at least yet. And if you want to get on me for saying yet, then that's your own prerogative. You know, we're not going to be right now the Italian A1 league. Like, you know what, Peter, if your brother ends up coming through and playing in one of these tournaments, that's awesome. But do I expect him to? Probably not. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're keeping this fairly realistic. That being said, you've got guys that trained in the national team gym that are available to play in some of these tournaments because they want to stay. We've got some guys that are international that will come back and play in these tournaments because of the people they know, and they're trying to grow the game as well. So definitely second what you're saying, Matt. You know, if you're hating on it, you can't really criticize what you can't understand yet. And there's a lot of moving parts to this that sometimes the people involved can't even answer those questions. So, you know, stay patient and stay tuned, I suppose, and we'll just see what happens with that stuff. But yeah, definitely everything we can do to promote that, the VLA and what they're doing.
Yeah. So go ahead.
What team in the VLA are you a part of?
Say again, Brandon. Sorry.
What team in the VLA? Just that way we can have it so people know and we can post about it.
Yeah, LVC.
Yeah.
For life.
For life.
Yeah, we're team.
So
LVC,
do you guys
Team
have
Legion.
another? Sorry, go ahead. 1 second. What'd you say?
Me?
Yeah.
I was just saying Team LVC, Team Legion.
Okay. Word.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, what is there any more events that are coming up? I know that it was kind of put on halt with COVID for a while, but have they been talking about doing any more events, or like what the process behind that might be?
Yeah, so the guy that plays, runs, coaches for LVC, Chris Hosley, he actually just sent a couple text messages out letting us know that there are some dates coming up. I think one might be in December, and I don't, like I said, these have come across the screen, and I'm not the best with checking my phone often, so I don't want to mess this interview up right now, but I'll text you guys afterwards. There's two that are coming down the pipe, and I think November, December, January is one of them, and then maybe one a little bit earlier into the spring. I'm not sure yet. I'm not even sure if that's a VLA sponsored tournament or if this is just, hey,
adult league, right?
To have, adult league status, but.
Got it. Well, I thought I'd ask.
Definitely a buzzkill worth of news, because normally around this time it's, there's going to be 2 in December and 3 in January. So, but
Yeah, it is what it is. We're all trying. We're all trying, given what's been happening this year. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm just excited to see that it's still moving. Like, I know when we had Syph on last week, he was talking about a tournament that they got rolling. You guys are getting moving in December, like, especially with just a startup of a league, like the availability to still keep you guys going and keep the team in the gym and, keep the hope kind of alive for anybody who keeps up with the NVA and VLA. Like, it provides that opportunity for that growth to continue and not to just be like, we had something going and then Corona kind of ruined it for us. It's kind of nice that, like, persevering through it and not letting, like, the what's the word for it?
Obstacles.
Yes, obstacles, like, hold you back.
I got you, man.
That was rough, man.
Yeah, you're forgetting English.
You're a cunning linguist.
Too long.
Oh my gosh. It happens, dude. All the time, actually. I remember being in Europe, and I'd be like, I would start like throwing in like, like the things that they would say when they're trying to speak English to me. I'd be all of a sudden adding all these pauses. Like,
I do that as well. I do the same thing.
Very goofy.
It's weird. Yeah.
It is what it is. One of the other things that just happens when you're overseas. So.
Definitely.
Well, I don't know if we have too much else to really talk about, so I wanted to offer Joe to just plug all his socials or anything that he wants to plug right now so that he can shout out whoever he wants to shout, anything like that. It's just kind of your time to do so.
I give all the love back to you guys for having me on.
Much appreciated, man. Happy to have you.
Not a big social guy myself. Anybody that's following 4 to 4, continue to. These 3 brains individually, let alone put together, you guys are a good creative spirit. So continue to do what you guys do. Have me on whenever you want. Just let me know. I'll clear some schedule. We can jive and chat a little more volley for sure. But I appreciate you guys having me on. Man.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
thanks for joining.
Yeah,
thank you everyone for tuning in to 4 to 4 today. Go ahead and drop a comment down in the YouTube comments below if you have any topics that you would like us to discuss or any guests that you'd like us to try to get on. We'd love to see what the viewers are thinking of the show. So thanks again for tuning in.